like y'all had a good banquet.
Oh, thank you.
Did a good job.
So, good evening, everybody. We'll officially call this meeting to order at 5:38 PM on Monday, January 23rd of 2023. 2023. We do have some of our members joining us virtually, so I'll ask for attendance purposes if they can unmute themselves and say their name for our attendance purposes for those on Zoom.
Angela Spring.
Good evening, Angela.
Good evening.
And we have two others, at least on Zoom, if you can unmute yourself.
This is Sharon McGill. I'm just a visitor.
Just very okay.
I'll be so rude. I'll be so rude.
Is there anyone else, Jim? All right, with that, we'll go ahead and get started with those in person. Welcome back. It's been some time since we've seen each other. Definitely want to honor the room and for those impacted by Hurricane Ian. I know it was very traumatic experience. I don't want to brush past that and kind of just jump back into business as usual. So it was something that a positive from that, seeing the South Florida come together, community come together, was something that was really special to see. And I hope that it's something that we continue to do. So I hope that all of you, all families and property as well as can be expected. And as we move forward, I think it shows the resiliency that we have as a community. And I hope that we can continue in that same vein outside of a tragedy such as Hurricane Ian. But definitely welcome you all back. Thank you for your patience for us pausing some of the meetings in the fall due to just schools not being in session, people personally, professionally being displaced. So we want to kind of make sure we gave time and space for that, and just welcoming back a new year. So I hope that we are able to still accomplish many of the things that we have tasked to do back in the fall. So welcome you all back. At this time, you should have an agenda in front of you. It's also been emailed to you, so I will entertain a motion to approve the agenda as presented. It's been moved by Laura. We have a second to.
A second.
All right, we have a motion and probably second. Any discussion on approval of the agenda? All right, hearing none. All those in favor? Any opposed? Okay. The motion approved unanimously for approval of the agenda. You also should have in front of you a copy of the minutes for the meeting. So give you a chance to get those, and then you have agenda there.
I'm Kathleen.
Okay.
Today.
So at this time, you should have received the minutes ahead of schedule, but they are there presented before you. I also will entertain a motion to approve the minutes as presented to us from the September 12th, 2022 meeting.
Move to accept the minutes.
Okay. There's been motions, is there a second?
Second.
Properly moved in second. Any discussion? All right, hearing no discussion, all those in favor of approving the minutes as provided for September 12th, respond by saying aye. Any opposed? Okay, we will, motion, it's been approved by unanimous consent for the approval of meeting minutes from September 12th. At this time on our agenda, we have public comment. For attending guests, if you're interested in speaking during the public comment section of the meeting, you guys can sign up front door. I don't see any guests in the space. Online in the chat box if you're joining us via Zoom. Just as a reminder, Each comment will have a maximum of 3 minutes. The public comment section portion of the meeting will be limited to no more than 1 hour. If more than 20 comments are received, time for a comment will be reduced to 2 minutes. And more than 30 comments are received, time for a comment will be reduced to 1 minute. At this time, do we have any public comment?
One public, but I don't know.
Okay, let's see if we place anything in the chat. Not, we'll proceed.
Oh, there is a chat. She said yes, public comment?
Yeah, so she will have 3 minutes.
Hello, I'll turn it up a little so we can hear you a little better.
Okay.
Here we go.
Okay, this is Sharon McGill, and I just had a question for the committee. Was anybody from the committee included in discussions regarding the new school board policy 2.36 and how that's going to be implemented?
What is it, two?
What policy are you referencing?
It's the designation of bathrooms, locker rooms, and dressing rooms.
So with this committee, our responsibility is to make recommendations to the board. We do not have a voting or voice for the policy making of it. We make recommendations to the board for decision making purposes.
Okay, because there was just no indication in this policy of how it's going to be implemented. And so I thought the committee might have had some input on that. Okay.
Well, thank you for that. We'll make sure to make a note of that and we'll ask for any clarification. We have our board liaison here today. We'll make sure that's provided to them as well. At this time, we'll proceed in our agenda. We have Dr. Adam Malloy, who was here to talk to us about the proximity plan. And as he is getting geared up for that, let the presentation get in for you. So, we appreciate you taking time. I know it's been a long day already, so spending some time with us to talk to us a little more about proximity plan. If you have questions, we'll try to hold those to the end of this presentation for questions.
Thank you, Dr. Blakely, and thank you guys for having me again. This is actually my 4th time at EDAC talking about proximity. Goes all the way back to my first time, August 10th of 2020. We were here again January 11th, 2021 at Dunbar High School. EDAC went there officially as a group to take a look at some of the plans. And then March 8th, 2021. Where we are right now is a little bit different stage. We were in a draft proposal to the board. The first reading is tomorrow. So I just wanted to get you guys connected with the facts of the proposal, what we're looking to try to do, how we're looking to try to do it, and some background there. So I do appreciate your guys' time. Thank you for having me. And I know that student assignment plans are in like really the ethos of EDAC. And for me, I also prioritize student assignment plans as they set schools and students up for success. Some look at it as just kind of like technical system work, but to me, it really is the beginning of a student's journey and a family's journey with our school system. Agenda, just real brief. We have a project focus, some of our current challenges, really our why, what we're trying to do. Take a look really at the draft plan that's been presented to the board, and then is really living in the new draft proximity plan that we're gonna read tomorrow. Implementation, years 1, 2, and 3, really getting a handle on this as it really takes shape year after year. And then your guys' feedback, your guys' thoughts, considerations, and really taking those back to our team. Due to kind of where we are, it's real actionable feedback, Real-time feedback is what we're calling it. You know, things that we're hearing, we're taking back to our team, assessing, evaluating, and then making adjustments or pivots based on that. So I don't want you to think that you're late in the game. And in fact, EDAC's suggestions and comments have brought us to where we are today, which was basically, we need to know the procedures that are gonna be associated with any new map. And so that's, you know, I'm happy to report that that's what we have for you guys to take a look at today. I did mention, have Dr. Blakely here, Dr. Zanui, they were reviewing some of the early maps at Dunbar High School. This was the January 11, 2021, the official EDAC meeting went to Dunbar High. They took a look at not only the map considerations, but they also, you guys have also offered feedback as it relates to the procedures, but also about some of the considerations. I remember going to Friendship and meeting with Mr. Burns a long time ago and going over kind of what this, you know, what some of these maps, what some of these procedures could mean for the school district, especially given, you know, our history with student assignment, Blaylock, unitary status, court order, those things. Our project focus is very simple. We would like to create a better student assignment policy, a better student assignment plan for our community. We implemented, you know, what is kind of like the main part of our plan in 2005, 2006. It broke the district into 3 large geographic zones, west, south, and east. And we have a responsibility to transport to a large number of schools. So this student assignment plan is really just for elementary schools. So I want you guys just to think of that. This is really for our little babies, our 47 elementary schools. That's what we're looking to do. And, you know, just in general, setting our students and schools up for success, kind of the place setter, right? Addressing a lot of our transportation inefficiencies. You'll see some of that in the current challenges. Improving a connection between communities and their schools. And then also establishing really an expectation for continuous improvement as it relates to student assignment. Taking a look at the distribution, taking a look as it breaks down on every demographic measure of a student, of a school, and seeing could we do a better job within our confines, within our policy, within our procedures to set schools up for success. So that's kind of our project focus for elementary schools. And you'll see who this impacts first, which is really incoming kindergarten students, students new to the district, and then any rising elementary student that needs transportation and is living outside of their current school zone. I know that was a lot. We'll go over that again. So those are the 3 big student groups. In terms of our current challenges, if you guys are a parent or if you know parents that have children that ride the bus, we can't get them to school on time and we can't get them home. On average, we had 3,000 students late to either school and or home every single day. This is a direct result of our student assignment plan and our responsibility to transport, in terms of elementary schools, in some cases, up to 17 schools for a particular subzone. Myself, I have 2 children in elementary school. I had to rank 12 schools, right? And us as a district, we have the responsibility to transport to all 12 of those options, right? If you don't participate in open enrollment, you are then assigned seats. You are then assigned to schools that have open seats. So that can only exacerbate some of the issues as it relates to transportation. I mentioned some of the participation in our current system and the associated outcomes. That's really where we can get a little bit tighter. In our board presentation last Friday, there was a talk about the displacement of students. So, you know, we're worried about this number, this number of students that are no longer living within their proximity zone, and they would have an option whether to waive transportation or go into the new proximity zone. And there was this, I think that there was a discussed maybe fear about the number. And to me, I had to level set with myself. I said, yes, that is a big concern, and communication and engagement is a big concern, but our current system actually displaces a lot larger number of students than what this would, right? And that's with the lack of participation in open enrollment. We have about 51% of our elementary school families that actually participate in open enrollment ranked schools and then are assigned. Everybody else comes in later and then is spread out across the large geographic areas, of course, with us being responsible to transport. This results in a lot of uneven distribution of students. My work in graduate school was really focused on student assignment plans and how they distribute students. here in Lee County. So I basically studied demographics in Lee County for the past 20 years, since Lee County was granted unitary status to really see what our system was doing as it relates to the distribution of students. Was choice working, right? Was choice without any sort of controlling factor working? And I think that that's really my why and my passion for being a part of the project and the team that's been working on this. That image to the right, sorry, I know it looks crazy and I didn't provide a good explanation. All those black dots are students, so they're elementary school students that attend Allen Park Elementary, right? So you can see that we have a large number of students, and you can do this with every single elementary school. Sometimes we've rotated it, gone east or gone west, depending on where we were presenting. But you can see that we are transporting past a large number of schools to get to Allen Park. And this is our choice system, right? This is how it operates. And in fact, I live, kind of right in one of those dots, and, I could have the potential to be transported to any one of those schools. Now, this is the map work. So really the proximity plan had two parts to it. So two big pillars. It had the map work, right? Reducing the size of the attendance zones. That was a lot of GIS study area work. That was a lot of student demographics, diversity, demographic data that we compiled. We took them out to the public. We made some movement on some of the maps. But really what we were trying to do was just reduce the size of them for elementary schools. We really wanted to try to get our average choice for elementary school parents down from 12 to about 4, right? And we wanted to get our responsibility to transport down, in terms of the square mileage. And we were able to do that with the maps that we produced by about 100 square miles in terms of responsibility to transport. So that was the technical side on the maps, right? And where we left off last time with EDAC was the procedures, so the associated procedures. I did want to touch on Proximity Map 1. This is the one that's available on our website. This is really the one that moved forward from the community and the board. We called it Proximity Map 4, but now we're just calling it Proximity Map 1. It, as I mentioned, reduces the number of elementary school choices from 12 to 4. It also reduces the scale of transportation by over 100 square miles on average. Right, which is huge for us. So choice still remains, it's just much smaller, right? So if I live in F, which is this kind of orange little zone right here in Cape Coral, right? Before, I would rank all the schools in W3 and W2, which would be in and around 10 or 12. Now I'm just going to rank Gulf, Pelican, and Cape, right? That gets us a little bit tighter. Okay, and you can see a little bit, sorry, I know the map's not great, but all of the maps and an interactive web app are up on our website where you guys can kind of check out, well, where do I live and what would be my elementary school choices if I lived in this zone. So this is the one that we are recommending. This is the one that's had the most kind of engagement. We made a lot of adjustments based on community feedback back in 2021 and 2022. Now this was kind of the missing piece, right? This was the second part, and this was procedures. What were we going to do with current students? How would it affect them? Some districts, they'll just pull the Band-Aid off and reassign, right? Our procedures as it relates to two main areas, really, grandfathering, and that's the ability of a kid to stay at their current school, and then transportation. Where would we fall in terms of transportation? There were times where the team was endorsing kind of running two systems, which would actually make our system more inefficient, but to try to honor that grandfathering. And then really our approach was developed using community feedback and then our district operational considerations. I put up Dr. Bernier. This is Dr. Bernier's #1 school district priority, which is fixing student assignment. Okay, so this is his big time project. He recognized it very early on that if he could address this, and it's no easy task, it's a very challenging topic and really technical work, he knew that he could do better by kids. And I put up that picture of the town hall because there was a really powerful moment where a father said, Dr. Bernier, he raised his hand in the town hall, he said, Dr. Bernier, my son's getting home at 7 o'clock every single day. Normally, it gets better as the year goes on, the buses start working or there's something, gets ironed out. Is it going to get better? And the direct answer is no, right? And it will only get worse next year. We are at a critical tipping point when it comes to getting kids to school on time and getting them home on time. This is one step, right, a major step to addressing some of those issues and doing it in a way that we think is favorable to families, both current and future. So in terms of grandfathering, the MAP and associated school choices will really go into effect for incoming kindergarten students and elementary students new to the district. So those are the two that will immediately go in and select from those new zones, okay? All rising elementary students are provided the option to continue to attend their school. However, transportation will not be provided unless the current school is within the new proximity boundaries. So in essence, we are activating the proximity zones for transportation. We're allowing current families the option to stay. However, if they live outside the zone, right, they're going to waive transportation if they'd like to stay. Or they're going to enter into their new proximity options, right? So I just ran through it with focus. How it's going to look is, we moved all online this year, which is great. I think it'll make us more efficient. Hey, Dr. Joey. It'll make us more efficient so now when a parent signs up, like let's say I have a kindergartner and I want to get them into school, I register. When I open it up, right, I'll have my new little choices for the zone. However, if I'm a parent of a fourth grader now and I'm living outside of the zone, I will have an option to stay and waive transportation, right? Or say no and then go into the new proximity zone. So we have it set up now where it kind of carries like that. Grandfathered students will remain and have the first go. They'll have the first priority. We really want to honor parents' choice. A lot of parents work really hard within this complex system, and we're trying to do a little bit better down the road, by those parents. So I just wanted to, just let you guys know, and we will reiterate again tomorrow that the three big groups that will be impacted by this immediately are incoming kindergartners, students new to the district at the elementary level, and then any rising student that needs transportation, right? Any rising student that needs transportation. That's that third group right there. Rising elementary students needing transportation will participate in lottery using the new proximity plan map and school choices, okay? And that's where Dr. Bernier has kind of mentioned like the rubber meets the road right there, right? That you will have some kids at current schools, okay, that need transportation and won't be able to stay. Right? But what we did in terms of our approach here is we tried to be as moderate as it relates to accepting of parent choice in the current system, and then what we can do as a district in terms of transportation. Right? What we're hopeful is that as this starts to implement, we will be able to really address some of our transportation issues. And then some of those, what I consider to be the most important things, some of those secondary impacts like school start time, right? I think that will be huge. If we can eliminate one of our tiers of busing, we will be able to address high school start time, right? And I taught high school for 13 years, or for my side. I taught high school for 13 years, and my best block was third and fourth block because it started at 9:30, right? That first and second block that started at 7:05, they were my probably best behaved, but they were the least engaged, if you know what I mean. Yeah. Now the middle school end times also could be adjusted if we can get rid of that fourth tier and then go to 3 tiers. Not to mention that transportation dollars all come from the general fund, and those associated savings can be put back in to our schools, to our classrooms, to our teachers, and I think that's a huge win for us. Again, transportation will only be provided to elementary students attending a school within the new proximity plan map. Grandfathered elementary students attending a school outside of the map will not be provided transportation. Okay. If board approved on the 7th, those lists of students that live outside of their current school zone will be provided to the principals. Robust kind of communication plan activated. And then really strategic support to those schools that have a large amount of students that are displaced, if that makes sense. In terms of year 1, 2, and 3, you can see year 1, you get the incoming kindergarten students, students new to the district. rising students living in new attendance zone and requesting transportation, and then you have the grandfathered piece there. I did want to draw your attention just to those additional considerations, potentially looking at aligning some of the middle school maps while still maintaining choice, moving transportation to a 3-tier system, and then adjusting high school and middle school start and end times. Those are things that we're looking to try to do. We find it, I find it odd that our start and end times are predicated based on the availability of transportation, right? That to me, it should be maybe more research based about, what's best for students or student learning. So that is where we are for year 1, 2, and 3. And, this is really our time to kind of have that engagement, considerations, thoughts, suggestions. Like I mentioned, this is real-time feedback. What I hear today, I'll take it immediately back to my team, and then we can make adjustments from there if necessary. But the bottom line is, this is one way in which we can address a lot of assignment issues, a lot of transportation issues, and then also try to honor some of our parents' current choice in the system with the grandfathering approach. We said it at a lot of board meetings. I think it is really important. The district will always maintain choice, right? If there's an empty seat and you want to go, like let's say you live in Cape Coral, but you really want to go to Dunbar High School, and if there's an empty seat and you can provide your own transportation, you will always be able to do that under Florida law. Okay?
That's good.
You can always do that. That will never go away. And in fact, we're not getting rid of choice. We're just shrinking it for elementary schools. On average again from 12 to 4. Grandfathering, if you would like to stay and you live outside of the new zone, you can stay, but we just won't provide transportation. And that's where we are right now with proximity. This is the first time that EDAC has seen that procedure side. They've done a lot of good work on the map side and then the recommendations for community engagement. This is the first time that we've had the one-on-one really with the procedure for grandfathering and then our responsibility to transport. Yeah, is that
Questions, please?
One thing that's interesting about what you did, it looks like, since you reduced the number of choices that you made, the zones more community-based by making them smaller. Another suggestion, probably for older kids, and with what's happening socially, I don't know if parents would go for this, but I grew up in Nashville, Tennessee. And we had something like this, and for students who live outside of the area that needed transportation, the school district had worked out something with the bus system. And you're in an interesting situation here because the gentleman who runs the Lee County bus system used to head Lee County public school bus system. And high school and middle school kids were given bus tokens. So if they lived outside and wanted to go to school, their parents couldn't get them. If they were old enough to ride the city bus, those kids could go to a school on another side of town. But that happened in Nashville during the 60s.
Yes, sir. Robert Cody, a good, actually went to elementary school with Robert Cody. So.
And one other question, is this a pilot for the whole overall district to start with elementary schools and see how this works?
Yes,
And then maybe move it district-wide,
maybe move it to middle school.
middle school?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
But high school right now, we're not
You don't
touching,
need
there's
that,
no
okay.
consideration for high school.
Okay.
Do you have any idea, how many are rising students that wanna attend, but we're relying on transportation and now won't have it?
Yeah, we have those numbers for each individual school in total. So right around 10,700 students currently attend a school that is outside of their new proximity zone. So they will be afforded the option to either stay and waive transportation or go into a new zone with those choices.
But out of that 10,700, do you have any idea how many can't provide their own transportation?
No, sir.
Most,
Yes. I'm a parent, but I don't know.
probably most.
Yes, Adam, thank you. I'm truly a big advocate of what you're doing. So my next statements have nothing to do with, I respect what you're doing. But every time I talk about this, because we started talking about this a while ago, there are many naysayers out there who we represent. And they'll say, another effort of desegregation. In other words, you hear that, and however much I try to say, no, they are not desegregating, they're not. So give me a good answer out of that Nisha, that you're not trying, particularly in the political environments we are all in, these kind of things come up in the discussions.
Yes, sir.
how-
So,
how-
yeah, I
how that
mean,
is going.
in terms of resegregation, really the line that I think is most important as it relates to the plan is that each new zone has enough diversity if distributed evenly, right? If distributed evenly to have a diverse student population. Now, we can't control perfectly for parental choice. And then I think my second part is probably the most important. And I think I hear that a lot with this plan. We're
Right.
constantly worried about the fears of the new without a critical examination of the current, right? So my grad work was on resegregation trends in Lee County, Florida, since 1999. So I studied our current resegregation trends and found that our current system, while very inefficient in terms of transportation, was not accomplishing the diversity goals that it was designed to do from 2005 to 2006. So I measured it by every single metric that you could from a student demographic standpoint. And I found that schools were becoming more and more isolated regardless of the increase in number of choices. So we were busing 17 schools from East Subzone 2, but we were also dramatically isolating our student populations, right? And what I found in the research and what I found here in Lee County is that the only way that you can really ensure that a school has an even or evenly distributed population per the zone is if you control it very tightly, right? And we don't have controls on parental choice, right? We don't have a lottery mechanism there. So our current system is beyond flawed as it relates to what it was intended to do, right? So I know that's kind of like a backwards way to do it, but I get that a lot. I'm like, they're like, well, you're shrinking the zones, you're going to resegregate schools. And I'm like, have you looked at the school's population now? Like, this actually gives us a much better way to strategically look at assignment and then be responsible year after year in terms of making potential either programmatic changes or lottery mechanism changes.
There's,
Right,
oh,
and
I'm sorry, there's a question in the chat, she can't
Can I finish?
speak. Oh, sure,
Can I
sorry.
finish my, Adam, let me just get this, that we know the history and the respect what you just said. We're still, whether we like it or not, we're still neighborhoods, we're still there. But we must be able to hope that the best integration is by choice. That our children, our parents, we can all study together, those kind of things. But we're gonna keep on doing it. My answer may be more that the demographics in different neighborhoods has changed or is evolving, that we are getting a little bit more. We're not there yet, but we're in the process and we hope it will happen. Thanks.
Sorry. Ms. Perez asked, can we get a number of how many students cannot provide their own transportation of those 10,700 and what zones they live in? And then can you share that research that you were just mentioning, Adam, with our group, and can it be emailed to us? Is what she asked.
These are asked and answered. Good, no.
The question?
This system that we've used since the NAACP school district for gerrymandering busing for many years. Many people had always considered still doing that. Because for years prior to that lawsuit, the 90s lawsuit, only African kids were being bused everywhere to accommodate equity. European American kids were not, particularly in Cape Coral. Those kids in Cape Coral didn't even come across the water. The only thing that really made them come across is what you did at Dunbar. Dunbar being a specific school, often those special programs have made many European American parents look at those programs and allow their kids come across. I think that what you're doing is actually moving toward equity better than what we had. I've never been satisfied with what we had.
I did have a question.
Actually, the format that you're discussing, I grew up in the north. And that, I always wondered with the school system, my children actually went to schools here in Lee County. And when I moved here, I was totally, flabbergasted with this school choice thing. 12 schools to choose, I never heard of anything like that. You went to school in your neighborhood, but of course in our neighborhood, we're all different cultures. So I never experienced anything like this anyway. And the busing thing, if you didn't live more than a mile away from school, you did not catch a bus. You walked to school. But regardless, this sounds good, and especially narrowing that down from 12 to 4. And I understand what you said because now I'm familiar with this, with the NAACP Education Committee. And narrowing it down from 12 to 4 limits the choices. And if a parent is really concerned about their child's education, they'll investigate the school that they want to choose for their child. And they'll know the structure and the demographics of that school. And as he said, there are more within the schools themselves, though they're not fully there, as the one person asked about. The minority structure is not fully there, but there are more minorities within the school systems in Lee County, but they're not fully there. And it's not just with African American children. There's other minorities, as you might know now, more Hispanic population. But my question, and I did digress a bit, when did you plan on initiating this? Because that population that is on the rise now is Hispanic. That's a big, you're talking about busing, you might need some trains and buses and did anybody in the fleet? No, let me stop, that wasn't funny, because even though I work with them, they seem right now, there are a lot of them that do travel by bus, but there's a lot of them that find other means of transportation too. In the east, where I do work in the school system, I don't see a lot of African American children choosing that school in particular. I see a lot of Hispanic children, and they don't live in that particular school area. In Dunbar, I got to see them narrowing it down to that 4. But again, when do you plan on initiating this?
This upcoming school year for elementary schools, 2023, 2024.
How are you going to get that information? That's another thing we've discussed before, communicating to the general public and then getting them to participate in this.
Yeah, and to that point, since really 2020, we've been engaging relative to the proximity plan. Myself alone, I've done over 100 proximity plan presentations specific, have met one-on-one with community groups across our area, including 2 with the NAACP. Proximity is not new per se. It's just in terms, we didn't have that exact grandfathering approach and we didn't have an exact implementation. Now, I agree with your point that the time frame for next year is very condensed. It was actually supposed to be implemented last school year, right? So if you went to our website, it said for a while until we changed it like last week, it said to be implemented in 2022, 2023. So we had to look for any 2022, 2023 implementation years. But no, this is something that the community is aware. One of the things that we found though is that the community doesn't become hyper aware unless it immediately impacts them and unless we can provide them what options they have. So even when we would go out and we were saying, yes, we would hope to grandfather, until we told them, well, you're living outside of the zone, you either need to grandfather and waive transportation or you need to go into the new proximity zone, it really didn't matter to them. We had a proximity plan at Lee School's email, and a lot of it was just asking about that. Well, what about my current 3rd grader or 5th grader? So I do agree that it's been kind of hypercharged after Hurricane Ian, but it really is a continuation of work that we've done since 2020, and then the team's work really prior to that. But yes, I agree that we're going to need the help of community stakeholders like yourself to help communicate. Well, what does this mean? Right? What is this hoping to do for the district? And yeah, I think that, our communications plan is solid. but we know that we have pockets of weakness, and we're trying to be strategic about it, right? So we have the 10 schools that are most impacted by it, right? If we send our communications team, our community engagement team, and we do resource events, and we're doing like grassroots stuff, and we're knocking on doors and sending out flyers and doing all that stuff, is it perfect? No, right? Are we still gonna miss some? Potentially. And I know that when you're dealing with a system over 100,000, that is a challenge. One thing that I do wanna connect it with though is before, when we're disconnected with those that aren't participating, they're getting spread out and bussed across an entire region, right? Whereas in this system, if they don't participate, they're just getting spread out among very close community schools. And in fact, if they don't participate, we'll give them a little geographic preference when it runs, so that they could actually be in a school closest as opposed to one that is across town. So I do hear you, and it is one of the things, well, there's a number of aspects that, you know, that kind of keep me up late at night thinking, but that engagement piece and making sure that our communication is clear and concise and easy to understand, and is in multiple languages, I think is huge.
So I did,
I just had a question. Out of the 10,000 kids, have you guys looked at the amount of kids that have waivers because their parents work in the district? Do you have that number?
I'm sure, yes, I'm sure Soretta could pull the waiver number.
So I was
But that one,
gonna say-
cause that one I think is helpful because then, I mean, they're technically going to be providing transportation.
Yeah, cause I was gonna say, my daughter I'm one of the dots for Allen Park, cause I'm way over. But that's because I used to work at Fort Myers High, and actually, they wouldn't let me put her in my neighborhood school.
Mhm.
So when I asked if I could remove her, they were like, well, we gotta put her back in Lottery and she can end up in Cape. And I was like, but why? I live around the corner from Brady. And they were like, oh, well, we can't just do it that way, we gotta put her back in. So this makes way more sense to me, 'cause I literally live 0.2 miles from Ray she could walk. But they were like, oh, nope, you have a waiver and she's already been at that school for 2 years, so we gotta keep her there. So I actually have to drive past work to drop her off and then come back. So I'm saying this out loud, cause I'm not the only teacher that does that. So I'm wondering, like, out of that 10,000, cause a lot of us have kids in elementary, so I imagine a lot of them will provide their own transportation because their parents work in the district.
Yeah, I think that is an easy choice, as long as they understand that, you know, that they're just selecting to remain, they keep their waiver, they provide their own transportation, no issue there.
Yeah.
And I think in terms of employee waivers, I think they got close to 100% honoring employee waivers, which is big for us, you know, that's a big thing that we can try to help out with our teachers and staff.
so I had a question, actually two questions. First part is two-part question, so I apologize for layering the question. It's more so the forecasting, and we talk about a little bit about forecasting now. So the first part of the forecasting is with the adjustment to the proximity plan, are there contingencies as it relates to head count or impact class sizes? So as we shift those individuals that were previously going out wider now come closer, are there impacts or implications to head count or class sizes that are kind of being put in place?
Yeah, so the capacity is huge. So if you think about it, you run into a potential capacity issue because if you have like 80% of kids that stay that are living outside, and then you have kids that wanna go in and then attend the closer school, you're gonna run into capacity issues. What we've decided to do is we've decided to run the grandfathering first, adjust the capacities, and then run the new proximity lottery for participants after that. We have to be very, very careful because we do run into head count, class size issues. We do have in our proposal that if there is no capacity in a proximity zone, they can attend and be bused to an adjacent proximity zone. So we built that in. We don't expect that we're going to have to use that, because how we built proximity was not based on our program capacity, it was based on our building capacity. And that's huge, because for us to actually realize efficiency in our school buildings, we have to hit the building capacity. So just like you might know this, you might not, but there's building capacity, which is how many students the building can hold, right?
Mhm.
And then there's program capacity, which is how we budget for our schools based on previous enrollment, right? And sometimes those don't always match up. Sometimes they do, but sometimes they don't. But proximity was built on building capacity, so we could maximize the use of our buildings. But we are gonna, in fact, I was talking with like our capacity guru today, and we're getting to that point where that real-time data, once it starts moving and once they start electing to grandfather in selection, we have to be on top of the capacity as much as we can. So capacity is huge. This is, this is something that's a big part of the plan, so these capacity considerations.
The second question, I know there's gonna be, what projected to be a large forecast of cost savings for the transportation that alleviates. Are there plans or proposals in place of how that money will be redistributed? And will it be done so by priority of those schools that are maybe not performing as other schools? Will there be a priority list for how it's redistributed?
And I think that is something that, real-time feedback that we can take back, because I think going out there, you've probably heard some numbers thrown around in the millions per year, 5 to 7 or 10, or we're the 64th out of 67th least efficient. If we move to the 50s, we'll save $10 million, right? Per year. I would like to take it back to our team to create a priority list, or to just give a general answer that this is going back to our schools, and that's maybe something that we can talk a little bit about as we move forward. But I would like to take that back to the team too, because I felt like that was always such a big, powerful sell to it. Like we're better supporting our schools with financial resources that were saved on with busing. I think it helps us with our busing issues, but in terms of the money, I would like to have I would like to take that back to our team, instead of just saying it goes back into the general fund to help schools, maybe taking a look at a list.
Because I think it goes to Dr. Villanueva's point earlier when we talked about that conversation of those who maybe naysayers saying it's resegregating and these community schools don't have the resources. If there's a projection of how that's being redistributed to help support, I think that will be very helpful in understanding that we create efficiencies, but we're also making sure that all of our schools are high performing. And those community schools feel more valued and like, I'm okay making that decision to go there. So I think that Dr. Villanueva.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Adam, I just love the way you do your job. I mean, every time you respond in the coordinator's office. But my question is, what happened to this is my two-part question. What happened to the community engagement office? Is that the office you used to have before?
So yeah, just transitioned. Jen Robinson is our new coordinator of community engagement, but she is still fairly new.
So we have a new person here.
Yes, sir.
Because all that Courtney's house was talking about and everyone else, this information communication, you can't do this. The two positions are too demanding for one person. And Debbie, I'm sure that if you have somebody, that's okay. The other part is okay. The board, the community engagement, communication is a very important position in what we do, because the things that lack sometimes is you're doing something but not communicated, and we get all these naysayers creating some other feelings. So
Yeah, and Peter, it's not just Adam, there is a team that's out there, so it's
yeah,
not
but
just.
still the leadership.
Yeah.
What Adam was doing earlier on community engagement should not be left behind, because he's already doing a lot of work in the community.
No, yeah, they have a team, and I was looking at their plan today, and it's way better than anything I could have attempted to do. Their team's great, they're ready to rock, and they had a side note today, just something exciting, they were like, yeah, we got the billboard. And so I was like, oh wow, that's pretty, like for me, I'm like, oh.
And in view of that, I would request Mr. Chairman, when she settles down, as you said, if she can visit EDAC in one meeting, it'd be nice to have that.
So I did have a second part of the question I did, Mr. Kimball here. In the grandfathering, I know you mentioned the kindergarten, new students to the district, the rising elementary schools. Are there, writing too much, so, are there other contingencies as it relates to, impacts potentially to siblings who are new into it? So you have existing student, but you have a sibling, are there opportunities with that, how that relates?
Yeah, so the sibling preference will hold. We will keep siblings together. The example that we used on Friday in our board presentation was, I have a fourth grader. The current school is outside of the proximity zone, and then I have a rising kindergartner. Right, I elect to grandfather the fourth grader, and I elect to have my incoming kindergartner with the sibling preference. The only thing is that we won't provide transportation, so they will be waiving transportation for both children, but they can stay together. In previous approaches, we kind of had the younger trailing sibling, we call it, the trailing sibling, not being able to attend that school. We struck that, and we tried to keep the siblings together just with waiving transportation.
That's a good idea.
Other questions or feedback?
Just feedback, not really questions, just two things. Just regarding the communication, I do think, I'm in a couple of kind of social media mom groups, if you will, and so this is a hot topic, of course, within those groups. So there's a certain segment that's always gonna be in the know, right? They're gonna be reading every email and all that. It's more so, those folks who are working 2 and 3 jobs and have 4 or 5 kids and all of those things. And so just making sure that we are mindful, which I know that you all are, but just wanna say it out loud, that the emphasis is on those folks that we oftentimes don't get responses from. That should be one of our number one groups, those folks who didn't engage perhaps last year. So, for what it's worth. And the other piece is exactly what, Mr. Kimball said, is that, I too, my daughter, I went to a community school, which is not relevant here, but my daughter went to Chicago Public Schools prior to coming to the Lee County Schools. And we had, community-based schools there. And, but what they did, not every community, is afforded, especially when you look at things like, I can't remember what they call it here, but it's the parents group. They call them LCCs there, but PTAs here. So where they have the ability and the time and the resources to fundraise and do things for those schools, right? And so my question always in Chicago was, how are we offsetting these other schools that don't have this robust, ability to fundraise and those sorts of things? And so I think to his point is that, we do need to make sure, just like I feel they already do with the high schools, is that making sure that we're being very mindful and very deliberate about magnet programming in those elementary schools and making sure that we're consistent across those zones and how we're posturing access and opportunity in those elementary schools will just be really key.
I grew up in Columbus, Ohio, and similarly, our school ID card would allow us to ride public transportation.
Yeah, and that was the other thing I was gonna mention too, that the kids in Chicago do that too, even elementary kids do it, they get a bus pass.
Any other feedback for Dr. Malloy?
Yeah, I kind of had a comment that kind of relates to kind of off the text a little bit. I'm really happy that we're moving in a better direction for transportation. We can't help the fact that we're gonna have some ethnically isolated community, that's gonna happen. But I am happy what I'm beginning to see that's happening around the county, which is yuppie creep, the opposite of white flight. Y'all know what that is? Okay. We had, right after the World War II, white flight. And where soldiers came back from the war and couldn't afford housing, and housing was provided to European American soldiers, called public housing. Then the GI Bill came along and they built houses outside. European Americans left the inner city, moved to those areas, and often the inner city went down when people did not put money. I live downtown in Midtown, which is predominantly an African American community. Large numbers of Haitians and Latinos live there too. I'm beginning to see yuppie creep. We even see it in the Dunbar neighborhood now. Right there where Speedy 2 used to be, Debbie, a European American woman lives in that house there. And then on Lincoln, I've noticed a couple have moved there. In my neighborhood, I have a Latino family who live here, a European American family who moved here. And I asked him, why did he choose this neighborhood? He actually said to me, Mr. Kim, I don't want to be around biggest no more than you. I want to be in a multicultural neighborhood. So I think because we're seeing that, that's good. The only sad thing about Fort Myers is gonna hurt us is these gated neighborhoods. And this community has been heavily criticized by research by the University of Michigan during the early 80s as being one of the most segregated areas. Because where you have neighborhoods with large numbers of gated neighborhoods, you're not necessarily having that because they're income-based. So that's one of the things that you're gonna have to consider as you continue to do your zoning, because you don't wanna end up with a neighborhood where all the kids are European American, all the kids come from one, and that's sort of what Peter's talking about, one social economic background. And I hate to bring this up, particularly with a governor like ours who denounces that anybody else's history needs to be taught in this.
Dr. Malloy, I know you have briefing tomorrow, so we appreciate you taking some of this real time.
Yeah, thank
Before,
you.
wait, I wanted to move forward to say, Adam, you're doing an incredible job in that office, and that is coming, I'm saying that within EDA committee.
Mhm.
Yeah, thank you, and the team, you know, like to Ms. Jordan's point, Dr. Denui, is that the team around this project has grown in great numbers and strength. And, you know, going from focus today to seeing how this would look on the interface for parents, to going to student enrollment and helping write like the policy and looking at impacts, running the numbers with our application services, but then seeing cabinet and seeing chiefs get behind this and recognize it, that it's something that needs to be addressed. And it's something that needed to be addressed a while ago, but seeing that executive support, Dr. Bernier, across the board, you know, Chief of Staff Michael Ramirez, Dr. Cuban McCoy, Jeff Spiro, some people that have a lot of stake with our schools. But seeing that, I appreciate that, Dr. Denui, but you know me pretty well, and you know that this is a huge district project, and it's it's taken a lot of people, a lot of hard work, and we still know that it's gonna be, some of it could get, you know, might be messy, you know, this first year, whether it's, you know, people that are displaced, that were disconnected from the process, which we have currently, whether it's, you know, boardroom where, you know, Dr. Bernier mentioned, you know, a student comes up and says, why are you taking me from my school? You know, those, we are ready, and we have that kind of, I guess, that fortitude around the plan, and it's just been really nice to see, the multi-department, cross-divisional look at proximity, prioritizing it, because it's, a lot of times, it's our family's first and only encounter with the district office, right? It's through student assignment. If we can do better by student assignment, and we continue to make changes each and every year, and we continue to look at the numbers, we can better plan, we can better maximize our building, we can better maximize our student success and learning. I think it all stems from there. So I appreciate the compliment. I know we've been here a lot, and I'm hoping that we can get it across the finish line.
It does, but people like me who have been there for a long time, you have seen the changes, the improvements, and I know you want to be modest, but it's a fact. I like what you're doing. Because remember, we represent people and they need communication. It's not just me because we are friends, but I can hear it. We do represent people when you come here and they say, thank you for what you're doing. And I'm saying that on their behalf.
Thank you again, Dr.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. You feel free to hang out with us, or if you have to take off.
I wanna go home.
Our next agenda item is we'll have
Adam.
update from our board liaison. Debbie Edwards is sitting in.
Well, good evening, everyone, I'm Debbie Jordan. Ms. Morgan, unfortunately, there was an error with her calendar, and I was in the building, so here I am. I don't know what she would have shared. It looks like you haven't had a meeting for a while.
So we haven't met since September, but I think the biggest thing is that on tomorrow you all will be having a
Yes,
briefing
we are.
regarding
have
the
that.
single member district.
Correct. So I will share that. So what I will share with you then, we have gone to, last week, several board members had gone to Tallahassee to speak to the legislators and speak to them on the resilience as far as what the recovery looks like for us and what we're still going through. So we had great conversation, 20-some meetings we had. So it was really good. Appropriations, everyone, took the time to see us, and we shared, the needs of the district and moving forward and what recovery looks like for us. As well as speaking to some of them regarding some of our legislative priorities, CTE, which we now have a sponsor in the House and in the Senate that will bring that forward, which is good because we need to have that as well.
Maybe 10 years ago, as a matter of fact.
So when Ms. Vaughn was here, you all had asked her to bring to the board single member districts going from 5 to 7.
Go down.
And so tomorrow we will be having a briefing on that. And so the agenda will be regarding the single member residence areas. I guess we have to go through that first. And the agenda is board member resident areas, prioritized topic, statutory, consideration, history of the school board members' resident areas, process and timelines, and then the superintendent comments. So all of that will be spoken about, and that will be held tomorrow afternoon. It is at a briefing, so everyone is welcome to come, and you actually can speak. That's why we're doing it at the briefing,
What time?
1:00.
1:00,
Can the public speak or just listen?
public comments.
Okay.
And that's why I know Ms. Vaughn had sent us an email requesting for us to do that, because we had promised that we would do it in January, except for we did not want to do it at a workshop, because then you would not have the opportunity to speak. Thus far, we have been receiving emails from people, you know, requesting information or for against them. So we are already, you know, getting some input when it comes to that. And so please, you know, feel free to come and be a part of that. And that also, and let me just share something else with you, the timeline. Okay. And I apologize, I wasn't really ready for any of this today.
Appreciate you stepping in.
But the process, so the board passed a resolution, the board has to pass a resolution by December 2023 for 7 single-member resident areas. That's a timeline that we have to go through. And then the board attorney works with the county supervisors of election to draft it into the ballot. The Lee County citizens vote on the referendum during the 2024 election cycle. If approved, the staff would work and it would come into effect 2025. So that's the timeline that we have right now. And it's every 10 years on an odd year, so that's why it's 2023. And we'd have to work on this right now. So that's basically what I have for you. And I took all the notes that you all said, and proximity, so we've been really busy, because we've been busy with proximity. We've been busy with parents concerned about proximities, good, bad, and difference. Where does that lie? Middle school, you know, and schools that have the K-8, which has been a real concern too. And I know Adam had not spoke on that tonight, but that was a real concern too. And we do have a couple that have 6 schools, which is like East Fort Myers area. So I took down all the notes that everybody said, so I can make sure that we share that with the board members as well. So I really appreciate you all, you know, asking the questions.
Then we're gonna ask you a few more questions.
Okay,
I think Mr. Kimball had a.
Yeah, then I feel real good about what you're doing here, because I think we're closer to accomplishing this than our county commission. You've done something they haven't. They have a charter review every, so many years, and smokescreen, meeting over single member district election, and never put it on the ballot to let the public choose. I feel good now that we're very close, because that's really all I ask, is that at least you allow the public to choose. And I think that when you go back, I had an article I was gonna bring tonight, my wife has it on the car, but you probably could Google it. I just showed Peter, years ago, I wrote an article about single member district election. You can Google it and it'll come up. And I was in a debate with the League of Women Voters, and the Republican Party actually won the debate. Because right now, when you have a large election, it's taxation without representation. It doesn't give a fair opportunity for all voters, it creates voter apathy, and it makes it hard to hold that person accountable. When a person runs from that district, then most likely we're gonna put somebody in there that we support. When you have at large, that person can spend their time campaigning in other districts and still get elected, and the people don't support him. And he never supports the people in this district because he's busy trying to get elected to office again. This is what we've seen time and time again, particularly with our county commission. So I'm looking to see that our school board is moving into the next century to actually take a strong look at single member district election and give all the voters an equal opportunity to pick their elected official.
And thank you for saying that, and I will tell you, because it does say every 10 years, and I'm looking at the information that we'll be sharing tomorrow. And it does say, every 10 years, the local governments may use the new census data to redraw their district lines to reflect how local populations have changed. So that also takes effect, and I know that Ms. Gittens was really trying to get all the numbers, as many numbers as she could out in Lehigh. And hopefully, we have the close enough numbers, but we know, we're growing. We had 810 new students just come in.
Mm-hmm.
So every day, and 42 came from, I think it was Cuba, 42 families.
Mm-hmm.
So we are, every day, we're getting new students.
Mm-hmm.
So they're living somewhere, and we don't have the numbers for them because they were not part of the census.
Right.
So, we're gonna, do our best that we can with that. And Peter, you had?
Oh, yes. Debbie, I'm always glad to see you. You have always operated on openness and truth. Education is under attack, and we know that. And I know people may say, oh no, don't get there because of the bullying part of it. The African American study, the course that was there, AP and all that stuff. So I do hope, because there's so much information and the misinformation out there, that the board can give this committee and the community guidance what really is going on. When you tell some people that your education is not of any education value, people feel very threatened. There are too many things going on, and we need guidance from the board level. What exactly is the truth? Because I think the government is ignoring. We are fighting discrimination, indoctrination, and all that. We need facts so that we can be able to communicate with the people we represent, and facts from the board. And leadership, we will always demand courage. So we need to hear, and when you go to Tallahassee, this is causing a lot of concern.
Well, we're trying to make sure that we get, as Adam said, there was a new person that took over his space. So we have, we are really trying to build that communication and try to, find out how do we reach
Right.
every single person, as you had mentioned regarding, some of the people, the Hispanic families that may not be privy to everything because they don't have the ability, or just any family actually.
Right.
So how do we make sure that we reach every single person? And that's us being out there in the community as much as we possibly can, regardless of where it's at, if it's in a baseball field, whatever that looks like, to make sure that we are putting out that information, going door to door if we have to bring people in to have meetings. And I know the superintendent has been running around, making sure that he is, listening, doing hearing, listening tours again, to make sure, and not just with parents, but with staff as well. Because you all hear, they hear what's going on and just trying to get that information.
Right.
But Debbie, I'm being point blank about the DOE and the governor and all that, talking about this course cannot be done because there's no educational value, we can't teach critical theory, and it's causing a lot of fears, particularly for the people where I come from. But Debbie, I know you're courageous enough, you guys going to Tallahassee, we need the facts. Because there's so much out there that is so negative and very scary to our people.
And we need them as well, Peter, so we get.
That's why I'm telling you, I told you that.
So we hope that we do get them out,
Look
and
for
we
the
get
fact.
alerts when new things are coming. So of course, every time we get something from Tallahassee, now it has to go to legal, so that way we're making sure that we're adhering to whatever that may be. So we're keeping in compliance with whatever. I know there's another bill that's coming out, HB 1, which is, and I don't know the whole thing, it's relating to money follows the kid, whether the child is homeschooled or not.
Yes.
So that's a new one that's coming, so every day we are trying to keep up with everything that's coming out, and that's a lot.
And I agree with you, sometimes you just don't have it, but since you're the one in the big money, so you are the one I'm getting the information from you, the correct information.
Well, we're gonna hopefully get the correct information, that's our goal, is to have the correct information.
Thank you, and I'm glad I was able to bring that up across.
You know how to find me.
Has that determination, has it had a direct impact on our school district? Just because I don't know what curriculum is taught, and what have you, so has it had already a direct impact on our curriculum with our students?
Not long yet.
It's just coming out just now,
Okay,
so we
okay.
don't, we're not sure
Yeah, no.
what's,
Okay.
we don't have all the facts at this moment.
Got it, okay.
You know, I didn't wanna bring this up, but Peter opened a can of worms. I felt like this should be saved till the,
That's what I mean.
what do we say in the end? The good of the order. But, facts or not, I think it's obvious that our governor is pompous, racist, and socially untenable. To say to an ethnic group of people that your history has no educational value. We could raise the same question about the type of history that we've been taught in school today, which is his story. And I'll leave it there, and I think you know what I mean by that. I think it's very pompous and racist.
Can I comment on that?
I'm sorry, Debbie, but you have to
Socially
be
untenable.
open.
Do you have any other questions for, Debbie? I know she kind of stepped in the gap for us.
But I would take any notes and everything back to Kathleen and Ms. Morgan and make sure that they have everything.
Actually, can we get that as a point in the agenda in the next meeting when we can get the facts about what is going on in the educational attack?
I'll make a note for that for our.
Yeah, please. You got me help.
We see, we're beginning to sue
Yeah, I wrote it down for Jen.
Well, I beg your pardon.
Yeah. I think I'm
What were the names of the two new board members?
So there's 3 new board members. Yes, ma'am, and that's Armor Persons.
Which district is she? You said.
He is Armor, ARMOR
I know,
Persons, and he is District 5.
but I wanna know how I feel emotionally.
Yes, ma'am.
Right.
I bite my tongue.
And Sam Fisher. No relations to
I know.
Ms. Fisher, I just wanna make sure. She always says that,
Imagine them not
but
letting
he
you-
I
is,
know she made it known.
yes, ma'am, and he's District 1. And then District 7 is Miss Jada Langford Fleming. I'm sorry, District 6, I apologize, I think 7 is District 6, Ms. Morgan is District 7. So it's 1, 5, and 6.
Well, if no other comments, thank you for stepping in today, I appreciate you taking it back.
Oh, Stephen, Commissioner Slack. Thank you.
Alright, at
Thank
this time, we will move on to our agenda item, which is good of the order. As I mentioned, tomorrow at 1 o'clock, there will be a briefing presentation related to single member district that will be held in the boardroom, so if you can attend, please, we encourage you to do so. The first item I wanted to kind of bring to good of the order is that back in the fall, I know it's very long ago, back in September, we did discuss that in January, we would make a determination on how we would continue with our modality. We talked about whether it would be fully in person or a hybrid option. So I wanted to make sure we brought that back as we sent that back in September, that we'll discuss that in January. So we're gonna open the floor for discussion on that as far as our modality for meeting.
Leave it like it is, COVID's still here.
Let's keep it hybrid.
In fact, we got 3 tiers now, COVID, the flu, and SR whatever. I've had 2 of them.
I have pneumonia right now. I have
See?
pneumonia.
Yeah, and my wife was sick, I think she had pneumonia.
I think we should move to person. That's just my opinion. I
Uh,
mean, just, AIDS is still around, but we're living through it. COVID, we're at that point where we're living through it. No one's dying. Gotta move on. That's my
Yeah, but
opinion.
we all, respectfully, I mean, we all have different health issues.
Issues, yeah.
Some of us may need more people than others, I think, you know, with technology, what it is today, I like a hybrid system. I mean, personally, I like to come in person when I can, but, you know, to be respectful of my colleagues, you know, if you have the technology where they can participate, you know, hybrid, I don't see, my opinion respectfully, you know, what's the harm?
So one of the things to, Mr. Good of the order is that one of the things for the committees, there is a attendance component to the committee. So I think it's very mindful maybe to make the recommendation to the board discussion about how that's important to, as far as engaging the committee, because if there's a number of absences from the committee, the individual could maybe be removed from it. So I think that's something important as well, that people who are engaged, if we go forward with a hybrid, they are engaging in the meeting, if not, then, I'm not sure how the board.
And I believe that, that if they're on, well, first of all, we need to make sure we check with, Ms. Kathy to see if we can still continue, because at one point in time, we were allowed to do that and they changed because of COVID. So that needs to be checked to see how, I know student advisory now is, all in person. And some of the other
Well, probably should
committees
be
have to
too.
be all in person, so I think we need to see
We
if
probably
the
should be.
statute has changed the law, because it did give us, it relaxed that for us for a while. And then second, I believe that, I'm almost 99.9% sure that regardless if you're here or in person, when you have that dual system going, that counts. If you're online, you are present at the meeting. Or I know it did even before when we even had, before we even had the hybrid. If a person had to be out because of work, but they were still on the phone, they were still considered part of that meeting when I was on that.
So with that information, what I'll do is I'll take that back to our meeting with Board Liaison Morgan regarding discussing that with our general counsel for the
Mhm.
district to ensure that as it's a possibility, I don't want us to make any recommendations for something if it's not even a possibility. So we'll get clarification for that and have that be distributed to us. But you can see behind me here on the screen our next meeting dates. So for right now, we will tentatively say there may be a hybrid option until we receive more information about if that's no longer statutory allowable for that.
Mr. Chairman, are these the major, like today we had Adam,
Correct.
these are the major items. I really wanted to have a major item on the occasional report, what I proposed just now.
Correct, so these are items that we agreed upon in the fall, so these are ones we planned out
That's
to
okay.
have the individuals come and present to us. I did take your note regarding the accuracy of information coming from the legislator to be discussed.
Right.
So the board liaison and I meet prior to the meeting to set the agenda, so I will take that back to liaison and talk about what was discussed tonight to set the agenda, but we also always start with a presentation, because it takes time for scheduling for individuals to come in time, so I do have that note down. Those are only two items that had good of the order. Are there any other items for the good of the order?
Hope everybody had a happy new year.
I just wanted to mention that there are quite a number of student teachers from Africa who are now like the ones there in Lee County. That was when Deb was the chairperson, and some of them are in Lee Meadow and some others are all over. I think that's very good effort and we should meditate. Joe started originally here and moving on. It's a good thing that we are doing.
Anything else to the order? If not, I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
So moved, second. All right, any discussion? Hearing none, consent, we are adjourned at 6:56. Yeah. How are you? Thank you, everyone. Good seeing you.
Good to see you too.